Right, let's go ahead and test this method right here. Select by and then email. So let's go back to IntelliJ, and in here, I'm going to open up the project tab, and then I'm going to navigate to Java, so main Java, and then inside of student, we have the student repository. And this repository, you can see it's an interface, and is this interface that we want to test. So again, this talks to this database right here. So in our example, so you saw that we have, so if I just zoom out a little bit and then just zoom in here, you saw that we have a Postgres database running, right? So for testing purposes, we're not going to use the Postgres instance that we have locally, and I'm going to show you a better way that we can do this. So let's just quickly go back to IntelliJ, and if I put this back just like that, it's kind of hard to zoom with the trackpad. There we go. So I think this is good for you. There we go. So in here, the way that we're going to create a test for this is, you saw that if I open a project, you saw that we can basically in here we can say, right, so we can write, or actually we can right click and then we can create a new package. We can say student, and then inside of student, then we can say student, and then have a new interface, and this will be, or actually a new class, and then this will be student, and then repository, and then test, just like that. Enter. And then we can go and basically write a test, right? So you saw that this was a bit manual. So let me actually delete this package inside of the test folder. And I'm going to show you a better way of doing this. So in here, inside of this interface, go ahead and press Shift Command and then T, or Shift Control and then T if you are on Windows. And right here, you can see that we have choose new test for repository. So 0 found. And that means if you have a test, it will just navigate into the test class. But here, what we want to do is create a new test. So create test. And then you can see that this is pre-populated. So testing library, JUnit, class name. So basically, this is the same class that we had just a minute ago. And then for the subclass, we're just going to leave it as is. And then destination package, you can see that this follows the same package as the one you have in main, right? And then we can set up the, basically we can have the setup method and tear down, so on and so forth. And right here, you can see that generate test for methods and then member. So select and then exists email. So let's just tick this and okay. And there we go. So you can see that we have a test class. So this was some auto generating for us. And you can see that basically we have the exact same thing here. Expand. You can see that we have should repository and then test. So now we can write our test. So here, let me just say it and then should and then select and then exists by email. And I think we should have a better name here. So it should select, it should check if, and then student, and then exists by email. And basically the name here doesn't really matter. You can go as long as you want, but as long as it makes sense, that's what matters. So in here now, what we're going to do is, so let me just remove this import because we're not using assertions from JUnit. And here, let's just say that we want to, basically we want to auto wire. So private, and then say student, and then repository. And here I'm going to say under test, and then end this with semicolon. And in here, I'm going to auto wire. So here I'm going to say at, and then auto wired, and you'll see this in a second. And now what we can do is basically set up the given, when, and then. So here, let's go ahead and say that given, and then when, and then. And I'm missing an N in there. So given a student, so let's say student, and then equals to new, and then student, and then inside I want to have, so basically let's just have name. So I'm going to say Jamila, and then email will be jamila@gmail.com, and then gender, and let me put this on a new line. There we go, just like that. And by the way, do not type name and then column and then email and then column. So this is IntelliJ giving me hints. So here, if I say do not show and then hints for current method, you can see that that goes away, right? So here, if I press semicolon there, so we have a student, and what I want to do is, so given, so here I want to say under test dot, and then save the student, and then I want to say when, and then under test dot, and then selects exists email. In here, let's just pass an email. So here I'm going to say, let's just extract this to a variable as well. So email, and then here I'm going to say email. And then this returns a Boolean, right? So exists, there we go. And this can be lowercase Boolean. And then, so in here, then I want to say assert, and then that. And if I press option and then enter, or you can click on this bulb right here and then import static method, and make sure it is the one from assert J core API. And then I'm going to say exists, and then dot is, and then true, just like that. And you can name this to expected, for example. So if you want, so expected, there we go. And this is our test. So you can see that it's really straightforward, right? So as you have the given, when, and then it's very easy for you to set up your tests. So given a student, right? So here we're doing all the prep work. So we have an email, the student, we save the student. So all of this is part of the given. And then when we invoke the under test, and this is the method that we are testing, then the assertion is, so we say assert that expected is true, right? Because we know that this method should return true because this email is already owned by Jamila. So before we actually run this test, there is something that we should configure, because we don't want this test to run against our database right here. So remember I said, so in here we have, so where is it? So in here, right? So we don't want the unit test to run against our Postgres instance, but instead we want this to run against an H2 database, which is an in-memory database. Next, let's go ahead and configure this in-memory database.